Never go to bed with wet hair. Never talk to strangers. Be nice. Eat your vegetables. Buckle your seatbelt. Check the oil. Don't go to sleep with a necklace on or you'll choke to death. Whatever you do, marry a Jew. There is a lesson in everything. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Never lie about yourself. This too shall pass. Don't be a jack of all trades, master of none. Always follow your inner voice. Be true to yourself.
Be true to yourself. As we move through our moments in life, we make choices of every variety. How do we know which way to go? Is there something inside guiding us? Do we learn it from our parents? Their parents? Are the spirits of our ancestors looking down on us, whispering instructions? Do we listen? The voices of the past creep into our thoughts with each new decision we make. The voices of my mother, grandmother, and grandfather trickle into my thoughts, intertwining with my consciousness, striving to be heard. Do the voices in my head bother you? Rachel, your grandmother always told me, whatever you do, never marry an artist. Whatever you do, marry a Jew. So I married Conrad, the artist, the musician, the non-Jew. I still have a crush on Conrad when I'm 23. I have pined after him and fantasized about him for 8 years. I go to that record shop on Telegraph every Saturday just to see him. This tall man with dark eyes, a mysterious face, and hair that looks like it could sweep a chimney. When we finally meet, we start off like two people about to live happily ever after. We have 2 weddings. The first is on Mount Tamalpais, very Fellini-esque. We have this massive group meditation. We have friends that are from all over. They're into Buddhism, Mir Baba, Erica people standing on their head, chanting Om, people dancing, shaking rattles. The ceremony's finally over and I think, good, let's get out of here. When I hear this voice I know so well. Susan! Susie, come over here right now! You've done enough for them! Now do something for me! Cut the cake! That's my mother. My grandmother. Oh man, you don't know my Granny Judy. Or perhaps you do. She is the epitome of all Jewish grandmothers, bustling about the house, fussing over everything. She used to send us these care packages with toys and clothes and practical items, notebooks and pencils for school. But she would also send us half-eaten boxes of cereal, partial rolls of toilet paper, and underwear she'd picked up at garage or yard sales. For my 7th birthday, I got a box of paper toilet seat covers, so I wouldn't get germs when I go to my friend's house. Every time we go to visit Granny Judy, it was the same routine. We could smell the mothballs 5 miles before we even got there. My brothers and I would get so bored, we'd walk around the house counting clocks. At last count, there were 32 clocks in her living room alone. And her food. Oh boy. Meatloaf cupcakes with ketchup for frosting. And her matzo ball soup, which my brothers and I referred to as boiled chicken skins. Okay, Chachkala, how many matzo balls do you want? You want 2 or 3, Rachel? You want your chicken in the broth or on a separate plate? Okay. Oh, God. Here you go, doll baby. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know why your mother couldn't have married a nice Jewish man. In high school, I went out with Leaf, and he was, to this day, one of the most romantic guys I ever dated. He had that bad boy history, and my family hated him from day one, but I was 16, and that made him even more attractive. He was determined to change all of his history when he met me. He was a surfer, so he quickly made friends with all my buddies, and we'd pile into his white '67 Falcon station wagon, surfboards on the top, me and the girls in the back sucking on lollipops, the guys in the front getting stoked on the surf, driving down the highway, listening to Sly and the Family Stone. In those days, I'd come out of my class to find my locker overflowing with flower petals, a poem stuck in the midst of it. Calla lilies are what I see when I dream of you and me. Growing wild in a pond, your touch is like a fairy's wand. Nothing compares to you, girl, not even a flawless pearl. I was so captivated by him. This guy I would somehow heal and make all of his pain go away. But I couldn't. And at some point, I realized I wasn't in love with Leaf. I was just in love with the idea of being in love. He was so devoted, so infatuated, which I loved. But when it was time for me to let him go, he wouldn't go. We broke it off a few times over the course of a year or so, and always I would take him back for one more try, and always I would realize he wasn't what I wanted. Until one day, I was serious about it being over between us, and he went back to his bad boy ways. In June of 1970, we have the official wedding ceremony and settle in Mendocino. And we make 2 promises to each other, just 2, that's all I ask. Conrad doesn't promise me money or a house, and I never ask him to. I simply make him promise no affairs and no joining any weird religious groups. That's it. We have our little ceremony, and afterwards we walk down to the Seagull restaurant for a piece of apple pie. And this first year is bliss. It's idyllic. Leaf wouldn't accept that I was done with the relationship, and he got so angry about my decision that we started brawling. Tearing each other apart mentally, and eventually literally brawling. He would snap back and forth from hitting me or pushing me to these fits of sobbing and despair. I was adamant, and I wasn't going to bend this time. But at some point, I don't know how it happened, he got up on the roof and took off his shirt and started yelling that he was gonna jump right off if I didn't take him back. Now, I'd seen this guy do crazy before. It was one of the attractions. He'd dive off cliffs, he'd jump sand dunes, and it wasn't the first time some guy had threatened to do something extreme if I didn't give him what he wanted. And it worked every time. So I told him I'd take him back. And the next day, I decided that wasn't such a good idea. So I went to Leaf's house and I brought him his things, including a candle, which we had gotten when we went to Disneyland together. And I had crushed it. Mickey's ears were broken, Daisy's dress shattered, and Donald was nowhere to be found. When Leaf saw this, he asked, "What's this?" And I said, "That's our relationship. It's broken." The night ended with me lying flat on the ground, in the rain, in the mud, bruised and broken. I ended up with a cracked tailbone and the wisdom that I didn't need to date the bad boys anymore. There's a part of me that's glad I went through those moments at 17 while I could still change, and that there was no marriage, no children involved. And the more I dated as I grew up, the earlier I could spot the signs that said, stay away from that guy, he's not the one to bring you happiness. And it was like this interior gong, surging signals through my body. And maybe I don't have it all worked out just yet, or I wouldn't still be single, but no guy has laid a hand on me in anger since. And the next time some guy climbs up on my rooftop exclaiming that he's going to take a dive, I'm just going to have to tell him, jump already! By all means, jump!